some of my clients, some of the larger Fortune 500 clients throughout the world. So I thought today one of the things that we might be able to do is talk a little bit about innovation in the context of some of the smaller companies, some of the startups, and then, if I could, some older companies like Google and Salesforce.com, which don't really feel that old to us. So I thought we could contrast it and talk a little bit about how innovation is different, maybe talk about how the economic recession has impacted it, and then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those as well. So let me go ahead and have my panelists introduce themselves. Polly, you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sumner, and I'm the President and Chief Adoption Officer at Salesforce, and I've been a CEO and have done a lot of things at Stanford. I worked for Oracle for many years and some of the old guys like IBM, etc.
I'm Marissa. I'm Vice President of Search and User Experience at Google. So I oversee the search product portfolio, which includes web search, images, news, books, maps, basically the way people find things. And I also have been very active here at Stanford. I did both my undergrad and my master's here, and taught some of the computer science courses.
I'm Rashmi. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Slideshare, which is a site for sharing presentations. I'm one of the startups on the panel. And I have not had much association with Stanford. I've actually had association with UC Berkeley.
Go Bears.
I see a little raw hands going up. My name is Jasmine. I recently served as CEO of ImageSpan. Prior to that, I headed up media group at BabyCenter.com and then worked as head of marketing and sales for Yahoo for several years. My entire career has been more in marketing and sales and media area. So I've worked at Procter & Gamble, Louis Vuitton, and Hennessy. So I've really crisscrossed a lot of different industries. And I'm honored to be here.
Okay. Well, Jasmine, you're on the end, so I'm going to go ahead and start with a question for you. As you described, you've worked at a number of different startups. So maybe you could give us a definition of, how do you see innovation happening at those startups, and how has it been different at the different ones that you've been working at?
I think that innovation, sometimes you don't even know that you're innovating until you kind of get there. And I think really the critical thing about innovation is about kind of aversion or your acceptance of risk and how quickly you need to validate or kind of challenge the risk factor. So I remember in the early days of Yahoo, when we were all of like 300-400 people, there was really no processes. We were trying to just be the first to market, and you actually had a lot of acceptance of failure. You knew that maybe one out of two, you would actually succeed or fail. As Yahoo became big, and I left Yahoo when we were well over 10,000 people, I think that we had a joke that we actually had to have 10 people sign off a product management roadmap before something got launched, something got tested. So I think that it's about time factor, and it's about how quickly you can validate something in the marketplace. Innovation also happens, I think, about diversity of people. I actually looked at, I think that when there's a huge change of talent or a huge change of culture shift that happens, I think when there are a lot of different apertures and different cultures are clashing, I find that there are a lot of innovation. So at BabyCenter, when I first went there, they had actually a staff that had really come off from online print for a long time. And then we started to infuse a lot of people from really technology and media. And it was really interesting the kind of different ideas and different viewpoints that came out. And I believe that a lot of really innovative thought about how to approach a solution or an idea came through.
Okay, thanks. So Polly, Chief Adoption Officer, maybe give us more on that. What does that have to do with innovation?
Well, when you think about the difference between cloud computing and other new ways of thinking about business models between your customers and you, and you think about a subscription service, you don't really succeed unless your customers adopt and use your products. And so, as Chief Adoption Officer, I'm responsible for our customers, how they use our products, and then, of course, that creates a lot of innovation and innovative ideas for how we can then reincorporate those things back into our products and services that we offer in the market. And then certainly in the platform part of our business, that's all about helping people think through how they can use the web and other innovative ways to communicate with their customers. So kind of two sides of innovation on the product side. And then the third piece I think is really important both from an adoption perspective and from an innovation perspective is listening to the ways that people want to acquire their products and services. And I think that there's a lot more room for innovation, certainly in the technology industry around that. I think that's an area where we have not really serve the customer well. Of course, I started in this industry 30 years ago when we made people buy things and big capital expenses and the rest. So I think there's this product piece of innovation and adoption, and then of course there's the business piece of it, which I think we can learn a lot about.
Okay, I want to come back to
Sure.
the 30 years ago making everybody buy something, but I want to ask Marissa a question picking up on something you said. So I won't even ask you about innovation at Google because you're known for innovation, but the question I have is, what do you do with the rejected ideas? And how do you determine, which ones are rejects and which ones aren't? And have you ever thought about, sort of opening a marketplace for all the rejected ideas? Because they've got to be good. So,
Well, I think that one of the most interesting things around the rejection is what the criteria is.
Right.
And for Google, innovation is really about technology. And yes, innovation is always about a fresh, new, different approach. But for us, what we really like to do is look at trends in technology that we think have gone particularly unnoticed or unaddressed. So for example, looking at something like Google Chrome, what we said was, well, look, everyone's looking at browsers and wondering how to optimize HTML. No one's really looking at things like, can we optimize JavaScript to make those pages much faster? Can we run each tab in a separate thread so the different tabs are independent and one tab crashing doesn't take everything down? Basically looking at some of the technology behind it and then looking at how can you surface that overall in the product. So for us, the ideas that are most likely to get rejected are the ideas that really don't have a deep basis in a technological insight. And I think it's really fun to sort of think about, well, what's happening in technology that can really be used to build an innovative product. Book Search did that with OCR and high-resolution photography.
right.
Gmail did that with storage. I think noticing a trend of what was happening with disks and what was possible in terms of storing people's email. And I think that we look for those. And I also think there was an interesting observation from Eric a few years ago where he basically said that we shouldn't kill ideas, but instead you morph them. Because usually when there's a lot of smart people who are all excited about an idea or working hard on an idea, there's something there. And I think that really goes back to that technological insight. The thing that's there is this observation or this insight they've had about where the industry is moving or how something could be used. And then it really becomes a question of how do you package it, how do you make it accessible to users.
Great, thanks. Rashmi, question for you with Slideshare. You're headquartered both here and in India, is that correct? So talk about what differences do you see in terms of the way people innovate culturally, in terms of what people do here versus what they do in India, and how do you sort of cross-pollinate that innovation between the two countries?
So, I don't see a whole lot of difference because I think that we tend to hire a certain type of, these geeky people who live on the web, and there's more commonalities between them than there are differences, and maybe the Slideshare culture kind of binds them all. So I don't see so much difference. In terms of how to cross-pollinate, I think it's really interesting. Often when you get into the office in San Francisco in the morning, there's some email threads that are coming in, and somebody's proposed an idea in the night from Delhi, and then you kind of let it sit in your head, and then by the end of the day, you're ready to respond. So I think there's this kind of cycle we have of building on each other's ideas. It's a slight time lag instead of having, kind of these brainstorming sessions. And I think overall that works very well for us. I would say that for us, a lot of innovation, even the initial idea of Slideshare has been based on random observations of user needs. Just kind of this one thing you observe and you're like, people are thinking this way or they're using it that way. What if we did that? And then just taken that and kind of, morphed it and like kind of built on it. That became something that we were ready to release. And then, the innovation comes after the launch because